doomsday, the apocalypse, World War III, the end of the world as we know it. Once seemingly far-fetched and reserved only for Hollywood and the most wild and paranoid of imaginations, these events are now at our doorstep. As a matter of fact, they're not only at our doorstep, they have kicked in our door and are within our home, rummaging through our belongings and disrupting our daily lives. The world as we knew it has ended, and we are now living through a period of history that will forever be retold as being nothing short of chaos. But what exactly is happening right now? What am I preparing for? Our greatest threat may not be our most likely threat, but what do I think is most likely to happen next? My answer may shock you. Full disclaimer, I am not able to predict the future, but my intuition and gut instinct have very rarely failed me. And if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you feel the same way. Have you noticed how it feels like things are getting worse? Have you noticed how some people are blind to it, but you can see things coming together and it doesn't look good? It's like we, the forward thinkers, the like-minded, are living in an alternate reality from everyone else. But really we're just one step ahead. But what's happening? It just doesn't feel good, does it? I had this exact same feeling in late fall of 2019. It was the first time I had ever openly talked about my prepper mindset with anyone outside of my household, but I felt like I needed to warn people that something didn't feel right, that something big was about to happen. Within months of first feeling that sense of impending doom, the world was enveloped by the pandemic, and our country, like most of the world, was locked down in an attempt to flatten the curve. 2 years later, we continued to be affected, and although still weighing on our minds and impacting the way we live, this health crisis seems to be the least of everyone's worries right now, and rightly so. I just can't help but feel like right now, something big is just around the corner. I know. There's plenty going on right now, but I hate to say it, I think something worse is coming. I wouldn't call myself an optimist, but I feel like I'm too hopeful to consider myself a pessimist. I am, however, a realist, and it doesn't take psychic abilities to determine our world is in trouble. But I'm certainly not alone. Everyone is on edge. Everyone is worried about what might happen next. And it doesn't feel like the tension is breaking anytime soon. This doesn't exactly feel like a time when things will de-escalate and return to normal. People ask us, what are you guys preparing for? The answer is anything and everything. And we've covered a lot of scenarios in many of our videos. Simply put, our mindset at Wicked Prepared is to prepare for the worst case scenario, because we feel if we're prepared for the worst, we'll also be prepared for the less impactful situations. So here we go. What is that worst case scenario? Well, as far as I'm concerned, and I know many will agree, it's nuclear war. There are other scenarios that could be worse, such as our sun dying or a large object impacting the Earth. But these events are unavoidable and pretty much impossible to survive, at least with our current technology. No amount of prepping will protect you from those events. A nuclear attack, though, as devastating and as lethal as it may be, is survivable, as long as you're prepared and lucky enough to not be directly hit. There are many videos about surviving nuclear attack, and I hope to do one of my own in the near future. And Mrs. Wicked Prepared is currently working on a video assembling a kit for surviving a nuclear attack, and that video should be out soon. If there is a link up here in the upper right corner of this video, that means her video is published, and if at this point you find my video to be too dull and boring, you'll probably find her videos much more uplifting and upbeat. Her videos are more popular than mine, and where we get the majority of our viewers. I'm just here trying to help out. As a side note, We are approaching 10,000 subscribers right now as I'm making this video. I hope you'll be a part of our community here and help us reach that milestone together. It's really exciting for both of us that we're reaching so many people from all parts of the globe. So if you don't care for my videos, don't write our channel off completely. Mrs. Wicked Prepared has a bunch of informative and great videos here as well, and she might be more what you're looking for. And she's much better looking than I am. Okay, back to my thought. Now here's the curveball. I don't feel as if nuclear war should be our biggest worry, at least at the time I'm making this video. Right now, the use of nuclear weapons is certainly a threat, but it's just that, a threat. The US dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan in 1945. Since then, more and more countries have developed these weapons, but none have put them to use. So the threat is certainly there, and is absolutely the situation we prepare for when we think worst case scenario. But to me, it's not the most likely to happen. So what is most likely? In my opinion, it's the good old EMP, or Electromagnetic Pulse. There was a time when I believed it to be something of sci-fi fantasy, or a rare event caused by our sun, predicted to only occur a couple times per millennia. But at some point I found out that no, oh no, many countries possess the weapons needed to create an EMP, and the likelihood of one of them using this to attack us is very, very high. A single nuclear warhead affixed to a ballistic missile aimed and detonated at just the right location high above us could destroy the US power grid and every electronic device, automobile, and circuit board from coast to coast. Our own government has admitted for years that we are not protected against this. We do not have a reliable system in place to combat this threat. Now, before you run to the comment section to tell me I'm crazy, which you might be right, or tell me that these are all myths associated with EMPs, just hear me out. There are a lot of unknowns when it comes to an EMP attack because, well, we've never had one. There are experiments that say it wouldn't be that bad, that the results would only be temporary, and that only electronics close to the blast would be affected. But this isn't known for sure, and many scientists and researchers state otherwise. Many tests have concluded that an EMP would most certainly destroy our grid and that of Canada and Mexico as well. That the damage would include every copper wire, every copper winding, even every magnetic component. Think about the implications of that. We're talking irreversible damage to every single wire that transmits electricity throughout the grid, right into and including your home. Every device powered by a battery, every device controlled by a computer, every solar panel producing power, every generator, wind turbine, every nuclear reactor, every power plant. Think about how high-tech our cars have become. They are essentially computers on wheels. These could all be rendered useless. Every electric water pump, every furnace, every AC unit, every wall outlet, fried. We would, if this happened, be transported immediately back to what life was like in the 1800s. And in general, we as a people are not ready for that. Here's exactly what I think will happen. And I may be wrong, and I hope and pray that I'm wrong. My greatest joy would be to watch this video years from now and realize that nothing happened and that life continued on with no risk of an EMP attack anywhere. But in reality, I can see it happening sooner rather than later. Speaking as an American, our country right now is divided. Our economy is fragile, and our efforts spent fighting the pandemic has left our nation weak and tired. Russia and China have pledged allegiance to each other, and within weeks of making that announcement, Russia invaded neighboring Ukraine in an attempt to seize control and prevent its admission into the NATO alliance. China has been threatening a similar takeover of its neighbor, Taiwan, denying its claims of independence and stating it is Chinese soil. I believe China has been waiting to see how NATO and the United States will react to Russia, and will begin its own invasion based on that outcome. I believe interference by NATO in either of these conflicts would result in nuclear war, and that's why we will not see that happening. NATO and the US will supply weapons, machinery, money, humanitarian relief, and possibly troops under the guise of a non-NATO country in an attempt to defend the countries being invaded. But I do not believe the United States, Russia, or China will employ a full-scale nuclear attack. But what I do believe will happen is North Korea will become involved. North Korea has the technology, the capability, and the mindset to detonate an EMP in the atmosphere over the United States, and especially with the aid of Russia and or China, they could successfully cripple a North American power grid. And although many deaths would occur as a result of the EMP, in fact some estimates show as high as 80% of the population would perish as a result, somehow it's not the same as a nuclear attack on American soil. It would not trigger the same response that a bomb exploding on the ground would. If North Korea launched a direct hit on, say, Los Angeles, in the same manner the US bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end World War II, it would be absolutely devastating. But the United States would still have the equipment, the manpower, and the infrastructure to retaliate with all its might and obliterate North Korea. But an EMP detonation would be different. It would be less dramatic, less horrifying, yet more destructive. An EMP attack would leave every American focusing on providing for their family rather than signing up to fight in a war. I just don't believe it would draw the same retaliation from the US military. It wouldn't escalate in the same way. But it certainly would force the United States to turn its attention inward rather than defending countries overseas, allowing Russia and China to duke it out for European, Asian, and perhaps worldwide domination. Folks, this isn't just some nightmare you're watching unfold on TV. This is real, and it's likely to happen, now more than ever. Is there the chance that I'm wrong? Sure. Could the science be wrong about the effects of an EMP? Nothing is for certain. But I'm not willing to bet my life on the possibility of it not happening, or it not frying every piece of copper wire from Maine to California. I'd rather be ready. I'd rather be prepared. And I want to see all of you be prepared as well. I care about you. I care about your families. But equally important, I know the more people that are prepared, the less widespread panic there will be when it does happen. If all of my neighbors are ready, we'll be less likely to attack each other for the last few drops of water coming from the faucet. If a large portion of my region is aware that an attack like this could happen, and people stock up gradually, we'll be less apt to fight each other for the last box of cereal in the store, because we'll have a good supply already in our homes. If enough American citizens can perfect their skills in the garden now, they will be able to feed their families after an attack instead of relying on supermarkets and the on-demand supply system. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I really do believe the more people we can reach, the more people we can warn, the better off we all will be. Because let's face it, we found out we can't rely solely on our government or our media. They're very good at not giving us the full picture. We can't depend on emergency response or FEMA to come save the day when the entire country is brought to its knees. If you haven't figured it out already, ladies and gentlemen, we're just pawns in their sick, twisted game. Ultimately, we don't matter to the powers that be. It's a terrible thought. It's enough to make you sick to your stomach. But the reality is, they don't care about us. Once you accept that fact, you start looking at things a lot differently. You realize you've got to be self-sufficient. You can't rely on any government to look out for your best interest. Folks, no matter what happens, we have our families, we have ourselves, and we have each other. It's you, and it's me, and we're going to be okay. You just need to be ready. Life will be harder going forward. It'll be tougher for most, but we will survive. We will continue on. We will persevere, because we prepared for this. I'm Rob with Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. Words to live by right there. We'll see you next time.